Hi guys, this is Warbird66 and welcome to today's video. The HobbyKing F-22 Raptor Stage 3 mod. After changing several technical aspects of this plane, which I explained in mod video stage 1 and 2, this one is all about looks. The guys among you who have already seen mod videos of mine before know that rarely any plane of mine keeps its out-of-the-box color scheme. And of course that goes for the F-22 as well. I was never a big fan of the grey silverish color scheme of the HobbyKing F-22. So it was pretty much clear from the start that I had to find a new color scheme for this bird, which is actually more difficult than it may sound. And that is because this particular bird is flown in only one camo, at least so far, the so-called ghost or cloud camo. At least these are the names I found. It consists basically of several shades of grey that mimic the shape of clouds on the plane. It looks pretty cool and it does what it is supposed to do. It hides the plane, which is pretty cool if you are the pilot. But if you are an RC pilot, you have a slightly different view on things. And I mean literally. So because of the poor visibility of this camo, the cloud camo was basically out of the question. So I started to look for a different paint scheme on the net. And I actually found a few after a while. Even they were most likely fantasy camos. Or maybe camo schemes that were pre-prepared for the event that the F-22 had to go on real combat missions in other theaters of war. Anyway, I found one that I really liked and that was a good mix between reality and fantasy. At least I think so. Before I went on with the work on the paint, I actually reinforced the elevators with a little bit of carbon fiber. They seemed a little bit wobbly, so I put a 3mm carbon fiber tube into every elevator, just to be on the safe side. So I started to prepare the plane and covered the whole thing with a good coat of primer, followed by a little bit of pre-shading of course. And I actually made a little mistake here, because I used black for the pre-shading. But since the basic color of the plane will be something like a sand yellow, black was a little bit too hard of a contrast, so I should have used dark brown or something like that. After letting the whole thing dry for a good while, I started to cover the whole thing with the base color for the plane. After that I simply applied layer after layer of paint till I reached the shade I wanted to go with. The base colors for this plane are IAF sand and light US Air Force grey, which I only used on the underside of the fuselage and the wings. After that I started to accentuate some of the panels on the fuselage. It took me a good while to do all the panel lines and all the accents on the planes, but in the end I was pretty happy with the result. Following the base coat of the plane I started to cut out the masks for the camo, which was pretty time consuming. Mostly because I had to do it twice basically, because this camo pattern was calling for sharp edges, so I had to cover the whole mask with tape. And of course I had to create several different masks, because I didn't want it to repeat the same pattern all over the plane. The whole process was also pretty time consuming, but I think the result was worth the effort. Here you can see the pattern as it is emerging on the plane. And of course this is not an exact copy of the template I found on the internet. I took the liberty and made a few changes here and there. Nothing big of course, because I wanted to keep the overall look of the camo pattern. Of course every little blob of paint needed a little while to dry before I could put on the next one. But I used that time to create the decals for the plane. As usual I used Corel Draw and my trusty Canon printer for that task. Next step, color-wise I mean, was to paint all the leading edges of the main wings, the elevators and the vertical stabilizers, as it was shown in the template. I did that by hand actually, because it seemed more complicated to mask the biggest part of the plane just to paint a few leading edges with my airbrush. After that I pulled all the tape from the servo horns and pulled all the paper out of the intakes and the EDF unit, and then reinstalled all the push rods, followed by a quick electronics test, just to make sure everything works and no paint got into receiver or servo or, God forbid, the EDF. But I was lucky and everything worked fine. So I started to apply all the decals. Well, it were actually not that many. Still, I think it's a special moment, because it means you're almost finished with your model. And just one last thing, a final touch if you will, I tinted the canopy, because it looked a little bit odd, so clear. So I decided to put a little yellow in it. Doesn't look that bad, I think. A few touches of paint here and there and a little bit of glue and we're done. The only thing left to do was to check the CG. Just keep that in mind in case you do your own mod. Paint can change your center of gravity quite a bit in some cases. So here it is, my version of HobbyKing's F-22 Raptor. I hope you guys enjoyed the build of this plane and the video, and if you like to see more, please check out my other videos or my channel. Like, subscribe, comment, criticize, whatever you like. So I think this is it, at least for today. There will be a short flying video at the end, so only thing left to say is have fun at the flying field, guys. Warbird Fan 66 out.